أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you so much for your invitation, your introduction, and also for giving me the opportunity to be involved in your project with this foreword that I wrote a few months ago, which was a foreword introducing the readers to understanding Al-Quran, or at least to understand in which way we have to deal with it when it comes to understand its meaning. This talk is just a kind also of introduction to our relationship to the Quran from within as Muslims, but not only as Muslims. It's quite important to get it right from the very beginning. I'm used to say if somebody wants to understand Islam and to be introduced to Islam, paradoxically the Quran is not the first book to read. Why? Because the Quran is not an easy book. It's not an easy text. On the spiritual side, it's easy for anyone to get the spirit, to get the light. But if you want to understand the meanings, if you want to understand Islam, you have to be equipped when reading the Quran. And many people, you heard about this just after September the 11th in the States. Many people just jump onto the Quran. I want to understand. That's fine, but you know, you start reading the Quran with after Al-Fatiha, which is the opening, with Surah Al-Baqarah, which is the longest surah in the Quran, the longest chapter, and it was revealed after 13 years. So you start reading verses that are not chronologically following the revelation, so you don't get the very meaning, because what you get at the beginning is quite detailed, and it's in fact at the end that you get the big picture. So the overall spiritual message of Islam is at the end, and the detailed revelations are at the beginning. And if you go straight to this reading, you can be misled. And I always say to people, if you want to introduce yourself to Islam, start with the biography of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's through the seerah, his biography, that you get, and a seerah that is helping you to get his life, the time, and the history with the revelations, that then you can understand what happened, and then you come to the Quran, then you come to the text. But it could be very difficult to start with the Quran. It's not a rule, because some of the people, they heard the Quran. You know the story of Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens. In fact, he came to Islam through the Quran, because he read Surah Yusuf and said, this cannot be written by a human being. And some, by listening to the Quran in Arabic without understanding what was said, the beauty of it attracted them. But this is something which is not understanding Islam, is the heart which is called. This is another story. I'm here talking about understanding Islam. Understanding with your mind, understanding the rules, understanding the principles. So to be called with your heart is different from understanding with your mind the principles of your religion. Now, so this is an introduction before the introduction. Now starts my introduction. Just for you to follow where I'm heading. So my introduction is first to say three things. The first is, when we come to the Quran, we should understand that we are going to deal with a message that is at the same time simple and complex. And this is the very essence of everything when it comes to the Quran, is twofold. So simple as to the light that you can get, complex as to the principles that you have to extract. So it's not an easy book, and the way it is put has nothing to do with chronology, nothing to do with topics, nothing to do with intellectual structure. It's very strange. And at the same time, you have things that are new, things that are repeated, cycles and linear. So everything is there, And if you want to get the overall message, you have to be equipped and to understand that it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes intellectual commitment. So, simple and complex. Second thing which is important is, once again, for anyone who comes to the Quran, there is terminology that should be apprehended and understood. Terminology means there are concepts that are very important. And it starts with something where we Muslims, speaking other languages, we have been misled, in fact, by the first translators of the Quran. If you come to the Bible and to come to the Torah, if you come to the previous holy books, in fact, in the Bible, we are talking about something which is the way the Psalms were recited. And this was versification, and this is why we are speaking about verses. In Islam, that's not the right word. In fact, if you look at the Arabic here and why I put signs, in fact, the very word that we are using to speak about a verse in Arabic is a sign. Ayah. It's not a verse. Verse is a wrong translation. The literal meaning of ayah is sign. And in fact, this is a book full of signs. And every chapter, which is surah, is full of signs. And what is a sign? A sign, the difference between a sign and an element, if when you look at the element, you see the element. But if you look at the sign behind the element, you see the meaning of the element. You want an example? Traffic lights. You are all experiencing traffic lights. You know what I'm talking about. When you are with your car and it's red, the object is red. So behind the red, there is a meaning. You know that red means stop. So there is a sign behind the object. If it's only, if you were to drive and to say it's red and you don't know the meaning, that is going to be a catastrophe. You need the meaning with the element. When it comes to the Quran, it's exactly the same. It says, you see a tree, it's a tree. But if you look with your heart, is a tree telling you there is a creator giving you this. This is a gift. It's not only a tree. And this is why you have in the Quran, in one of the most beautiful chapters, surah of the Quran, Ar-Rahman. And the Prophet ﷺ was talking about this as Arusat al-Quran. It's the most beautiful, because, and there is something which is repeated as a song, which is beyond the song, which is coming from God. And he's saying, Ar-Rahman, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. Meaning something which is, once again, the twofold. الشمس والقمر بحسبان means the sun and the moon are following very strict calculation. This is for your scientific understanding. والنجم والشجر means the stars or even the plants or the and the tree are prostrating. Meaning this is for you to see with your heart. You don't see them prostrating, but they are prostrating. So there is something for your mind, the exact calculation, الشمس والقمر بحسبان, very, very strict calculation. والنجم والشجر يسجدان. But you don't see this, except with your heart. If you see the tree with your eyes, you see the element, you don't get the sign. The sign is apprehended, understood through your heart. So once again here, there are signs. And the Quran is full of signs. And what is very important is that in fact the text is mirroring the universe. Why? Because where are you going to find these other signs? in the universe, in nature. How do you get this? Look at the Quran. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا. Ayat, the same word. فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. So we are going to show them our signs in the horizon, in the universe. So as much as you have signs with trees, with everything, all these things are elements you will find, and signs you will find them in the Quran. Signs are echoing signs. Book is echoing another book. Read the universe, read the book. Read the Quran, read the universe. Two books, two revelations, two signs, or two sets of signs. So this is why verses is not the right word. And science means two things, again, which once again is something which is important here. As much as you have to understand that the revelation came as a text talking about another text, a revelation talking about another revelation. The universe is a revelation. The Prophet ﷺ was crying when he got إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. In the creation of heavens and earth and the alternation of night and day, there are signs for those who are full of insight. Open your heart. Now there is a second thing. As much as there is a dialogue between the two texts, that the last one is talking about the first one, that the book is talking about the other book. And you know this is something which is opening your mind. Where do you find this in the Western tradition? You find this, it's very important. You can't understand humanism and Renaissance in the West if you don't get it right. That in fact they started to look at the world as a book. Montaigne, Rabelais, the Italian people of the artists were talking about what? The book of the world, the book of the universe. Exactly, read it. You have to read it, and the Quran is telling you about that. And Abu Hamid al-Ghazali was coming with this expression which is now known. El-Kitab al-Mastur is the book that is written, while Kitab al-Manshur is the book that is deployed in front of your eyes. A book talking about a book. It's up to you to read, if you are readers. But there is another thing. So you see the couple here? There is another couple which is important. Because to get the elements, the objects, and then to get the signs, you need to read with two things, two faculties. One is your mind and the second is your heart. You need to understand with your heart. And there are things that you are going to get with your heart. And one of the qualification, the negative qualification of those who are rejecting the truth or rejecting God is that they have hearts and they don't understand with their hearts. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. Qulub, they don't have a deep understanding. Al-fiqh, now al-mustalah, the specialized word for fiqh now is law and jurisprudence. But in Arabic, fiqh means deep understanding. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. So they have a heart and they don't get it, they don't understand. And you know this is a very simple experience. Sometimes you don't understand the people with your mind, but you understand the people you love with your heart. I hope so. I hope so. I hope that you are experiencing something which is my heart gets it. And in Islam is essential. So why do the Muslims perform ablution before coming to the Quran? Why is it something which is do that? Do you think it's just a physical thing? No, it's a spiritual thing. Be equipped, purify physically your body to open up your heart spiritually. It's to open your mind. Many scholars, when they were to extract the rules, were performing prayers and ablutions before in order to open the heart. Because there are things that you cannot see with your eyes and your heart is opening. It's helping you. And you know the Quran, إنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. Your heart becomes blind. Your heart can become blind, and be careful, you don't only see things with your minds and your physical eyes. What I was saying, you need the physical eyes to get الشمس والقمر بحسبان, and you need the spiritual eyes to get والنجم والشجر يسجدان. You need both. So 2 books, 2 faculties, and always you in between. You should understand that the Quran is a call for personal responsibility. Read and come with all your faculties, your heart and your mind. But you have to come. And this is why the Quran, one of the most important verses that we have in the Quran are always this. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O you who believe. And you have very strict verses. Istajibu, respond to the call. The Quran is a call, come, respond. It's the starting point of a dialogue. And sometimes it's confusing, because you don't know why the verses or why the chapters are starting like this. It's confusing for your mind and telling you, come with your intellectual humility. We always say this, the starting point of the revelation, the Quran is اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read in the name of God who created. The 4th revelation, according to the chronology that was given to us by a Suyuti, who wrote a book on the Quran, إتقان علوم القرآن. الإتقان في علوم القرآن. So he wrote that book, and in this book he's coming with a chronology, and the 4th revelation is starting with something very strange. نون والقلم وما يسطرون. نون. What does it mean, noon? So you start with something. Aqra means read, you have to come to knowledge, and then just few revelations later, noon. And then you have other chapters say Alif Lam Mim. What does it mean? That's it. Come you with your mind and do the limits of your mind. Come with your mind to read, but know that you are not going to know everything. The Quran is a school for intellectual humility and spiritual openness. But intellectual humility, that sometimes you're not going to get it. And even the Prophet ﷺ, even him at the end was not able to tell us what noon means. He never said it. And the only thing that you have to say when it comes to Alif Lam Mim, the starting point, you start the Quran, Alif Lam Mim, Allahu A'lam. That's it. Allahu A'lam, God knows best. So you get this, a call for knowledge and a call for humility at the same time, to avoid anything which has to do with arrogance. Don't enter in this book with intellectual arrogance. Know that the one who knows best is talking to you, and just come to him knowing that you don't know everything. And it's a powerful message, very heavy. إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. It's going to be heavy. This book is a heavy meaning. Why? Because it's calling you to your own responsibility. Now you have to understand. You cannot get the Quran and say, I don't care. You start with the Quran, it means now I'm involved. It's exactly as you enter in this room. You enter in this room maybe with less knowledge, I hope, less knowledge than when you are going out of it. Do you think that you have the same responsibility? Every knowledge you get means more responsibility to translate in your life. That's it. So be always careful when you go to lectures. It might be free because you don't have to pay, but it's never spiritually free. You have to do something out of it. You are always responsible of what comes to you. إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤول. You are going to be asked about everything. And if you heard something, you cannot say, oh, I didn't. I'm sorry, it's too late now. It's a call for responsibility. And then it's heavy, as I said. Can you just listen to this? لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على الجبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. If we were to just come with this Quran on a mountain, you will see the mountain destroyed. The mountain. What does it mean? And look at this. This is said to people who are in the desert. Not like us in Switzerland, we say mountains everywhere. So it's even very powerful. Say, be careful, this Quran can destroy everything. Nothing can stand in front of the Quran because it's heavy. But is it heavy physically? No, it's spiritual. Get the power, the light that is coming out of it. So you understand here, it's all the complexity, simple and complex. 2 readings, 2 universes, 2 revelations, minds and hearts. This is where you have to come, and in between you are responsible. And the Quran is coming to human beings because they have a mind, they have a heart, and they have a conscience. They are full, and they should be full of insight and understanding that mukallafun, now you have to do something. The Quran is a book sent for us to stand up or to live up to our responsibility, our human responsibility as believers. So it's a call. Now, having said that, what we need to understand out of all this big picture is the levels that we have in the Quran. And we have many levels. The first one has to do with something which we need to repeat. Is when you read the Quran, tartil, which is the way we recite the Quran, is a science in itself. And it has to do with the beauty of the Quran. It has to, you know, the beauty, the one who was calling for prayers, and the one the Prophet ﷺ was asking companions, so just give us the perfume of the Quran, read it the way it has to be read. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, the way you have to, the psalmody, the recitation has to follow very strict rules. And we should get this right. You know, in literature, you know that there is something in poetry, for example, we are distinguishing between form and substance. What you say and the way you say it. In the Quran you find this. When it says, "Ud'u ila sabilik bil-hikmati wal-maw'izati al-hasanah wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." Call to the path of your Lord and Allah bil-hikmah, with wisdom. You have to be wise yourself. And look at what comes just after this. Bil-hikmati wal-maw'izati al-hasanah, the best exhortation, the best substance, the best message. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي أَحْسَنَ, and use the best way to talk to them. The best way with the best substance. And we get it in poetry, that the form is part of the substance. What is said, and the fact that it's well said is said in a beautiful way. So what is said is as important as the way it is said. So this is why you like poetry, isn't it? The Quran is all about this. What is said and revealed the way it is said. It's in itself a sign. One of the most important miracles of Islam is the Quran itself. Because it's beauty and substance. It's form and substance, and the beauty is part of the substance. And this is why sometimes you don't know that why the people are, when you listen to the Quran, even if you don't understand Arabic, there is something special. There is beauty. And this is why we need to find the best voices. And some are very skilled. And it gives a spiritual dimension to it. So this beauty, it's important. Allahu Jamil yuhibbul jamal. God is beautiful and He likes beauty. And it starts with the Quran. This is a beautiful text speaking about beauty in a beautiful way. It's all about this. And it's heavy as to the substance, and it's beautiful as to the form. This also, it's important for us because and you know, when you are trying to be qari, for example, I remember when I was in Egypt with my teacher, very strict with you cannot just say, you know, you have in Arabic, you have ta and you have ta. You can't say ta when it's ta. And if you say ta when it's ta, stop it. It's very strict. Every single letter has its own calculation, the way you have to. And this came afterwards through linguistic, telling you from where al-ahruf are coming. And you have to be very strict with this. And when you have al-harakat, for example, when you have an alif, it's ta, 1, 2, and sometimes it's 4, and sometimes it's 6. And if you put 2 when it's 6, it's wrong. You are not dealing with the beautiful architecture of the form as much as there is an architecture of the substance. Very strict. So this is where we need to understand that. So why this is important? Because sometimes you listen to some voices say, wow, he's flying with us with the Quran. You are following and you think it's coming from nowhere. He's as strict with the technique as a pianist with its symphony or its piece. Why? Because when you master the way you deal with piano, then you can improvise. With the Quran is exactly the same. A very technical mastering of the rules, and then you can go. Then you can bring and take us very far. But the Quran is very, very demanding as to the technique of its reading. So this is one, and this is the starting point. Now there is something which is very special in the Quran, and this is very simple. It's very simple and it's very deep at the same time. When you start reading the Quran, there is something that you see which is very important. Is that it's full of stories. You read the Quran, you have the stories of all the messengers, all the prophets, Moses, Jesus, and other prophets, Abraham, peace be upon them all. You have this. And it's very strange. These stories are coming in the Quran, so you have very simple story. Anyone can understand a story. And then they are coming back. It's in cycle. And sometimes you have the same elements of the story, and sometimes you don't have the same elements. It's something new. So it's the same story, but not exactly the same, and it's coming back. Why? First, get the very essence of a story. When you get a story, if you are a teacher in literature, you can see this with your students. You give them the same story, you can see the levels of understanding. Everyone is taking from the story things that he or she is putting in them. So a story is the same story for us, but not read the same way. Why? Because what you see in the story is coming from your own experience, your own life. You know, the richness of the way you read comes from the richness of your mind and your heart. You put them in the story. So Allah is talking to us through stories, helping every one of us to connect to the story at his or her level. You come to the story with your own level, your own understanding, and you take from the story exactly what you are experiencing at the time you are reading. In fact, the same story is never the same because you are not always the same. Sometimes you come to the story being sad, so the story is going to talk about sadness. And sometimes you are quite happy, and sometimes you are troubled, so the story is talking to you the way you read it, with your own understanding. And this is a universal message for you alone. You read Surah Yusuf, depending when, at which, and sometimes you read again and again, and it's not always the same. It's never the same. The same story which is never the same for you, because you are no longer the same. So it's accompanying you and talking to everyone. And then you read the Quran and the story is coming back. And so what is this? It's a way of dhikr. It's always coming back. It's repeating something which you have to understand, and it at the same time is remembrance for your heart and call for your mind. Because if you want to understand the true story of Moses, you need to get all the pieces. So you need to build it with your mind. So you need to be intellectually committed to understand. For example, the story of Adam and Hawa. It's Adam and Eve. It's something which is interesting. Because if you read it, sometimes you say, oh, he was wrong. He was the one who was attracted. In the other part, she. And sometimes both. So who is responsible? In the Christian tradition, she was. In the Islamic tradition, there are more occurrences when he was, or both were. And in fact, at the end, what the scholars came is they were both attracted. It's not the woman that seduced the man. We don't have this in the Islamic tradition. But in fact, if you read the story in one segment, you don't get the whole thing. So the Quran is coming and giving you angles for your mind to ponder, to be humble. And your heart can get the story. So you don't just come to one segment and say, oh, I got the story. I'm sorry, this is part of it. Allah is calling your intelligence to build on this coming back. And when somebody is repeating you something, it depends how you listen to it. If you listen to it with your heart, it's different from listening to it with your mind. If now I'm telling you, you know what, close the door. Just after 2 minutes, please close the door. Are you going to close the door? So close the door. I said, look, I'm not stupid, because I'm talking to your mind. Now if I tell you, you know what, I love you. And after 2 minutes, I love you. And after 2 minutes, I love you. I'm going to be, I'm not stupid, I know that you love me. Are you going to listen to the same way? Repeating something with your heart is giving you strength as to your spiritual dimension. You love me, repeat it, and I need to repeat this. Repetition with your heart is not the same with repetition with your mind. It's not the same. The way something is repeated to your mind is not different. And the Quran is repeating for your mind and is repeating for your heart at the same time. So it's coming back, the cycles. And this is why you have to be open to this. So repetition could be intellectually an assessment of your lack of memory. And repetition could be a call for the in-depth of your spirituality. Different things. So the Quran is dealing with all these dimensions. And this is something which is important. So the stories are talking to everybody not the same way. And depending on the time, not the same way as well, because you are not the same. Now, the stories are reminders, and this is important. Now, the Quran is through the stories, through the way it's repeating things. It's in fact, it's a journey. When you enter into the Quran, you are going through a spiritual journey. And this spiritual journey is based on something which is important. God is calling you, and is expecting from you that you respond to his call. And in fact, it's a dialogue. Al-Quran is a dialogue with yourself, and it's a dialogue with him. If you start reading the Quran is talking to you. And if you meditate what you are reading, you're talking to yourself. And this is the very essence of nearness. You know, you have in the Quran, the companions went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and they asked him, how do we speak to God? Is he close? Is he far? Do we have to shout? Do we have to whisper? How do we talk to him? And look at the answer coming from the Quran, and you know that the Quran these were very specific answers to specific questions coming from the companion. And say, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِ عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If my servants are asking you about me, I'm very close, I'm very near. I respond to the call of the one who is calling me. When do you call him? When you start reading the Quran, it's a call, you are calling him, you want him, and he's responding. In fact, he started the process. He sent revelation to call us. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, come, and then you come, and then you enter into a dialogue. But this dialogue is to be close to him. Where is God? Where is God? We don't know where is he. But the knowledge of God is where? We have it in the Quran. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم واعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه. And know that the knowledge of God is between you and your heart. So when you come to the Quran, you are coming between you and your own heart. You are coming back to yourself. So it's a dialogue with the self, which is in fact a dialogue with God. To read the Quran is to start a dialogue with him. With this miracle, which is he will be always here when you go to find you and you try to find him. And if you are not finding him, it means that you are not looking for him. Because if you start looking for him, he will be here. By definition, this is what he's telling us. And this is the very essence of the Quran. So this is where you understand the spirit. And this is for everyone. This is the simple dimension. Go for it. You don't need a mufti. You don't need a sheikh. You don't need anyone but your own will and your own commitment. Yourself being committed. This is it. And it could be at every time for everybody. This is the beauty and the universal message of Islam talking to your heart. And open your heart. And whatever you get as the secret coming from this is for you. And sometimes you see things, you know, in the mystical tradition, you say al-nur, which is coming from what you have in your heart. It's a protection. The Quran is protection. وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ حِجَابًا مَسْتُورًا. When you read the Quran, we are protecting you from all what the people who don't believe in God are saying or doing. You are protected. It's a book of dialogue and protection. It gives you strength, spiritual strength. So this is where you will get it from the Quran. Now, that's the first level. What now it's important is to differentiate this from other levels that are much more complex. And unfortunately, some of our brothers and sisters, they think because it's given to everyone to read, they are going to do with the Quran things that are not right. For example, we know that the Quran was revealed over 23 years. And not all the chapters, first, the chronology is not, the first revelations are at the end. So these very short chapters that we are reading now very quickly were the starting point of changing. In fact, the spiritual conversion. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-muqallib, ya muqallib al-qulub, one of our supplications towards Allah is that He's changing the state of our heart. In fact, He changed the state of the Prophet's heart by starting with very short verses at the beginning, but changing everything about the way he looked at the world. وَالضُّحَى وَالسَّمَاءِ, all this, the sky, the down, the trees, al-fajr, everything was to be changed. So it was an intellectual, spiritual conversion through the very short verses at the beginning and chapters. And then came the more detailed thing. But there is something here which is important. It's for us that because it was revealed over 23 years, some of the verses are connected to very specific situation. And you need to connect these verses with a specific situation, especially, for example, some of the verses. No one can deny the fact that some of the verses in the Quran are dealing with violence. They are talking about wars and violence. Yes, you find this in the Quran. Now you cannot just take this and say, I extract this without coming to the 23 years of revelation understanding in which specific situation, to which situation this was connected, and how do we have to understand this. And especially, for example, the surah, the chapter 9, surah al-Tawbah, al-Bara'ah, which is connected to a very specific situation of war. And you have to connect this. To understand these verses, it has to be connected to the historical situation and environment. This is what we call in Ulum al-Quran, Asbab al-Nuzul, the reasons for this revelation. And what is important here is that when you do this, you should understand that the principles that you are going to extract from the Quran are not only through the verses, but the verses in the light of the environment. You extract the principles with the two. You cannot just read the Quran and extract the principles. You need to understand the reasons of the revelation to extract the principle. So there is an intellectual commitment to understand the text. So how are we going to do that? Are you equipped to do that? Can we just say, oh, we need a democratization of reading the Quran, let us all be mujtahid, so we are going to extract the rules? Do that, and you will see the catastrophe. You have now in the Middle East, ISIS and the so-called Islamic State, people who are taking from the Quran, they take here and there and say it's written in the Quran. I can take from the Quran. You want to democratize the Quran? Go. You are not equipped, and you are going to end up with reading اقتلوهم حيث ثقفتموهم. Kill them wherever you find them. So this is what I'm going to do. That's a democratic way of dealing with the Quran. They don't know the context, they don't know the history, they know nothing, and they take the text by saying this is it. And when we are dealing with some Orientalists, now in the West, we have people saying, you know what, these people in Syria or in Iraq are really dealing in the right way with the Quran, because when you read the Quran, read what is said about the Jews and the Christians and the non-believers. Read what is said about the enemies of Islam. You have to kill them. So they do exactly the same as the others. They take the text, they don't put it into the context, they disconnect the text from the context, and they say this is it. So we have to explain to them, no, that's not the way we read the Quran. And if you do this, you are supporting their interpretations that are perceived, understood by the consensus of the Muslims as being anti-Islamic. This is not our religion. This is an understanding that is distorting the very essence. It's a wrong reading. Because yes, the text is universal, but we all know that it was revealed in history. So we have to connect eternal message with historical context. If you are not equipped to do that, don't be involved. Don't, because it's not certain that at the end we are going to only extract the positive. If we open up this interpretation, we can have people who are narrow-minded, dogmatic minds, and they are going to distort. So first level is from some revelations to the context. Now, the Quran is full of moral teachings, and the Prophet ﷺ said that he came just to complete the good characters. Principles, moral principles. If you read the Quran as it's not chronological, and that you have stories coming, how are we going to extract the al-fada'il, the virtues, the good behavior? Here, as much as in the first step you had to enter into the details, here you have to take a step back to get the overall message. To read the whole Quran and say, oh, so what are the principles that we have here? When it comes to morality, when it comes to education, justice, freedom, knowledge, all this. These are principles that are in the Quran. You can't get them like this. You have to read the whole text and from the whole message extract the principles. That, for example, what we had a discussion with scholars a few weeks ago. What is the highest value of Islam? What do we want to achieve? I have been talking for I don't know how many years now, not going to tell you, but for a long time. And I was always saying, you know, the highest value of Islam is justice. Because everything, al-adl is one of the names of God. And al-qist, Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin, is equity and it's also justice. Inna Allah ya'muru bil-adl, God commands justice. And then I was reading the story of Lubaba in the Prophet's life, And in fact, this story, you know that Lubaba was one of the companions. And when the Prophet was to leave Medina, he was the one who was in charge of Medina. He was a high profile. And once he had a problem with a tree that was his belonging. He was the owner of the tree. And this tree was exploited by a poor guy that was exploited the tree. And then Lubaba wanted the tree back. And the poor guy went to the Prophet and said, I have been doing and working on this tree, and this was my subsistence, my living, and I want to keep it. And Lubaba said, no, that's mine. This is justice. And the Prophet ﷺ was trying to tell him, give it to him. You are right, but be kind. I said, no, that's my right. So one other companions were there, and the companion said, I'm ready to buy this tree. I give you all my trees, but I want to buy this tree. And he said, yes, of course. So justice and business. So he took the trees and he gave it to him, and he took the tree and gave it to the companion. And then you understand here that yes, it's good to be right, and sometimes it's better to go beyond justice. And then you come to the Quran. Inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adl wal ihsan. Al-ihsan is something which is excellence. Is that's my right, and I can forgive you. It's my right, but I forgive you. That's my right, but I give it to you. That's my right, but I show empathy. Something which is beyond your adl with your mind is beauty and generosity and empathy with your heart. It's sincerity. You are giving more. And even to forgive. Because to forgive, you need to go beyond justice. If you are obsessed with justice, you are not going to forgive. You are going to remember and to remind the people, that's my right. So we should struggle for justice, but not worship justice. But we have to struggle. And then I changed my mind by saying it might be that it's not justice that is the highest value. Now, I'm coming with something which is out of all the studies saying at the end, all what we are trying to get in Islam as the supreme value, min al-fada'il, is something which is in its very name. And Allah is As-Salam, and He's calling us to Dar as-Salam, and He's asking us to find salam in ourselves and with the people. In fact, Islam, when you come to Surah Al-Baqarah, is idkhulu fi silmi kafa. Enter into Allah's peace with all your heart, your mind, and your being. And in fact, everything that we are trying to do in our life is exactly this. Ifshu salam, spread peace around you. A Muslim, by definition, is trying to spread peace with his own self or her own self. I am trying to be at peace with myself, which is the highest level of being with God. Al-nafs al-mutma'inna, my inner peace, it's essential. But I try to be at peace with nature. And all the ecological calls today are just try to be at peace with the environment. Because if you destroy the environment, you are going to destroy yourself. Peace with nature. Peace with your fellow human beings. And even if you resist the oppressors, your intention should be, I want peace with justice and dignity. I'm resisting your oppression because my role in this world is to promote peace, and you are promoting troubles and killings. So this is something which is important, is how do we construct this? You have to have the whole message and dealing with the Quran and try to extract the principles. And so as much as you were with the details, now you have with the global message. And then there is a third level. How are you going to deal with the rules? You can't read the Quran and extract the rules in an easy way because it's not chronological. If you read, for example, the Quran, you won't get the right chronology, for example, as to the fact that you cannot drink alcohol. Because the one who is telling you fashtanibu, that you have to stop, chronologically it's come the last one, but in the text is not the last one. So if you are not aware of the chronology, if you haven't studied the chronology, if you don't know the steps, if you don't understand, for example, that we have 4 revelations telling the Muslims you have to avoid interest and riba, if you don't get the chronology, you don't get the meaning. So you cannot just read the text and just turn the pages and say, that's it, I'm reading. No, you need to get the chronology. You need to get the whole teachings and how Allah was dealing with the first community step by step. 9 years to stop drinking alcohol. Not one night, not 2 days, 9 years. And one of the last one who was drinking alcohol before the last revelation came saying, "Fashtanibu, stop it now," was Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, one of the companions. So he was one who was drinking, and then came the revelation, stop it now. But you don't get the rules and the understanding of the rules and the priority of the rules. What comes first? You should understand this, and you have to understand the levels. We should stop starting with, you know, the appearances and come to the being. It's 1,000 more time important, 1,000 and even more important to pray than to dress the right way. You get that? Start by praying and not look at me the way I dress. Because some, if you are a good Muslim, if you have the headscarf and that's it. Who told you that? You all know that it's not enough to wear the headscarf to be a good Muslim. But the starting point of being a good Muslim is to be committed with what you have to do, and this is the spiritual journey, is to start praying and then you go your way. And not to start by what is visible for you people. And some, they are doing this. They end up protecting themselves from what the people are saying, but they are not educating themselves to what Allah is expecting. So what that's the most important thing. And then you go. Don't let the people judge you from outside. And this is why you understand the Quran is talking to inside, and there are priorities. So the scholars here are, it's very important to understand the levels, the priorities, the structure of the rulings, and then you have to be equipped. You cannot do this on your own like this by reading. It's a science. It has to do with lots of knowledge, and sometimes even the semantic, the sentence, the words, the chronology, the connection with the hadith, and here you also need to know about the Quran needs also a hadith. And all the people are telling you, you know, I only read the Quran and that's enough. I don't want the prophetic tradition. So I'm sorry. Now read the Quran. Come and sit with me. Okay? Are you praying? Yes. Tell me in the Quran, how do you pray? It's not there. You don't have in the Quran the way you pray. You need the hadith for doing this. So all the people are saying, I don't want the hadith. I'm sorry. You can't practice your religion if you don't rely on the hadith. Now, we have to be very clear. There are authentic ahadith and others. Now I'm talking about the authentic ahadith, prophetic tradition, where we need both of them. But tell me, we have trends now, people, oh, only the Quran is the revealed book. Yes, but it is said in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have the best example with the Prophet, the messenger, so you have to follow him. And he said, when he was performing the pilgrimage, and he was saying even about praying, صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي. You pray as you saw me praying. So you refer to me as the way you pray. خُذُوا مِنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. So you have to take from me how to perform Hajj. This is where you come to the hadith. So the Quran is telling you, I give you the principles, now the way you have to do it, go to the Prophet ﷺ. You cannot just ignore that. This new trend of, you know, liberal Muslims are only the Quran, and say it means that you are not going to pray. How do you pray? 24 hours? Do you have the 5 prayers per day? So how are you going to perform that if you don't rely on the hadith? So having said that, here you understand that when it comes to the history of the revelation, you need to come to the reasons. When you come to the principles, you have to come with the overall. And when you come the overall message. And when you come to the rules, you need to have a clear understanding of the chronology, the understanding of the priorities, what is clear in the text, what is open to interpretation. There are some verses that are clear, some others open for interpretation. All this needs to be tackled, and you need to be equipped. So you understand, it was simple, and now is the second part to say, wow, it's quite complex. And if you think it's complex, I am winning. I'm happy with it. If at the end say, wow, I didn't know all that, it's complex. So the text itself, simple and complex as well, as I was telling you. My conclusion out of all this is three things. In fact, the Quran is a revelation it has to accompany you, go along with you during your life. As I said, a dialogue. And it's two things that there are conditions to enter into this revelation. The first, as I was saying, is something that is a state of mind, a mindset, a state of heart that should be here, always. It's what I call intellectual humility. It's really to be humble with your mind and knowing that Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, when he was talking about Nurun ala Nur, it's light upon light, as we have the organization here. Light upon light is the light of this revelation coming to the light of your heart and your mind, because you have two lights. And the first light that you have is the al-fitra. It's this spark that you have in your heart, and then you are yearning to get an answer. Wherever you are, wherever you go on earth, you will find the people always yearning for an answer. Why am I here? Always. And this is what we call the fitra. It's there. We want to know why. And the Quran is coming as an answer. But between the answer coming from God and you trying to find Him, this intellectual humility is essential. Open your heart and be humble with your mind, always. And know that sometimes things are going to come to you without knowing why and how. You know, to be ready to something which is unexpectable. You know, I wrote a book with a philosopher, one of the last great French philosophers. It's Edgar Morin. He's very well known around the world. And he was telling me always, he's 93, and very, dynamic, very open to the world and challenging. And he's always having one sentence say, expect the unexpectable. This is very spiritual. This is very Islamic, by the way. It's coming from a Jew atheist. Yes, I have dialogue with Jew and atheist. Okay, that's halal. In case you have a doubt. And he's great. A very bright mind. But what he said, coming from his tradition, is a very Islamic sentence. Expect the unexpectable. Meaning, put your hope in Him. This, you know what? How you translate this in Arabic? It could be La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power and strength except by Allah. He can do whatever. You feel that you cannot do it. You feel that it's not going to happen, and it happens. So this is the way we deal with it. So the second point is what I was saying. Intellectual humility, open heart. It's important, and get it right. To read the Quran is to enter into a personal dialogue with God. So it's a dialogue. It's to read, it's to communicate with Him as much as you are communicating with yourself. And it means it's a personal experience, it's a humbling experience, it's an opening experience, revealing experience, and at the same time, when you read and you see that you don't get it all, you understand that you have to be equipped when it comes to rules, when it comes to values, and when it comes to historical understanding. And if you are sincere and committed, you understand that there are limits for you not to transgress when it comes to give some opinions, because if you are not equipped, silence is better than being wrong. Thank you. go and sit there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would now like to open the floor for a Q&A session. You may use the microphones available at the stars on the left and right side of the aisle of the auditorium to address your questions to Professor Tarkan.
Two questions. I don't speak Arabic, so what would be the best translation in your mind to understand to understand the meaning of the Quran? Yeah, that's question number one. Number two, you were talking about how the verses were revealed not in a chronological order. So how do you, in order for us to understand it from start to end, in a way that would not get us confused about the message, after the Al-Fatiha, what is the next verse that we should be reading? Or should we just read it the way it has been put together for us?
I respond straight away? Okay. Bismillah. Thank you. The first question is what is the best translations? I think that you have many translations, and I would suggest to everybody not to rely only on one. There is one translation that it's interesting because it's at the same time there are some explanation that you had from Muhammad Asad. It's a translation that I like and I used a lot. But Yusuf Ali, it's also a translation that you can use. And I would say not only one, you can use two. You have a very literal translation that is provided by the Saudi government, because they have a center for translation that are quite interesting. I don't agree with some of the comments that they are making in the translation. But at least what is interesting is that they are very strict with the Arabic words. So it could, you need to look for not only the meaning you like, but also sometimes the very clear understanding of some of the words. So I would not only take one and that's it. I would have two or three, and you go and read here and there, and sometimes you can see the differences and it helps you. I would also suggest to every one of you to take few weeks and months of your time to get something which could be between 800 and 1,000 Arabic words that you try to get, to understand, to have the meaning. And you know what? With these 800 to 1,000 words, when you then listen to the Quran in Arabic, you start understanding more. And you start understanding because it builds the foundations of what the Quran is all about. With 1,000 words, you get the essential. And then it gives you another relationship with Arabic. Because it's very important not to get only, the recitation, but to, when, for example, you are praying in Taraweeh during Ramadan, just to get the meaning. And if you don't get this, for example, for some of the people who are going to pray Taraweeh, they don't know Arabic. I would suggest, as you know, that the people are going to read one third years every day, so it's one chapter or one section. Just go and read it in English before, in order when you listen to be connected to the meaning. We have too many Muslims. Some of them, they know the Quran by heart, they don't know what they are saying. And I think that we need to be much more connected to the meaning. So it's good, the translation are necessary, but sometimes you can have, I would suggest to take time to have Just the foundational semantic structure of the Quran could come out of these words. Now, if you come to what we call al-qira'at ta'abbudiyya, what I was referring to at the first part of my talk, which is the spiritual connection with the Quran, dealing with the stories, talking to yourself, meditating, read the Quran the way it is. If now you want to understand some of the rules, to understand the chronology, this is another thing, which is now you have to read it in another way. And this is where you need to ask about, you know, for example, the chronology. You have texts that were produced known as Ulum al-Quran. Part of Suyuti is translated into English. Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, when he is talking about the chronology, giving us the chronological order of the chapters, for example. And you have tafasir, which are commentaries of the Quran that can help you to get this. So if you are reading it for spiritual experience, read it the way it is. If now you want to understand more about its chronology and the priorities, this is where you go to Ulum al-Quran and other texts where you will be given the chronology, some of the structures and the way you have to deal with it. And then if you go to the rules, this is where you have to read other things. For example, when it comes to fiqh, Islamic law and jurisprudence, we are dealing with ayat al-ahkam. So the ayat, the verses that are dealing with the rules. And these verses are extracted from the Quran and understood in the structure of the legal Islamic framework. So it's another way of reading it.
You did mention that the Quran is substance and revealed in the most beautiful way. Is this not an example of how we should do da'wah? That it should be, the delivery is very important with peace, and this is sometimes something which is missing in the Ummah when we do da'wah.
If I may, just what do you mean by substance?
That's what you said.
No, in da'wah.
What you're trying to.
You took the mic from her because I'm asking questions. I was just asking, what do you mean by substance when it comes to da'wah?
What are you trying to promote? What are you trying to propagate?
Yeah.
To intrigue others.
So the way we have to put that, you mean? Okay. Look, you know, I started by saying when it comes to the Islamic terminology, we need to have a better understanding of the words. And da'wah, it's a complex concept. Because many Muslims, they just think that da'wah is to invite the people to come, and it's just, I'm talking to you about Islam and I'm calling you to be a Muslim. In fact, the very essence of conversion is none of our business. It's between Allah and the people. The Prophet ﷺ was going along a young Jew for years, and he never asked him to convert till the end, where the young asked his father, "Can I?" While the Prophet, peace be upon him, was here. And if you come to the Quran, you understand that da'wah is something which has to do much more with the people who is calling, much more than the people that we are calling. The verse that I mentioned, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasani wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan," is all the characteristics are referring to the one who is calling. "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik bil hikmah," with wisdom. Be a wise man or a wise woman. Wal maw'izati al hasana is the best exhortation, the best meanings. And jadilhum billati ahsan, talk to them in the best way. The way you behave, what you say, the way you say it. You, the one who is calling. So the substance is here. And this is why I'm saying, if you want to understand da'wah, you should understand the other verse, which is وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. We made you the nation of the middle path in order for you to bear witness to the truth to people. We have to be witnesses and stop talking about Islam with words, but experiencing Islam with behavior. That's the true da'wah. The true da'wah is to be a witness. And this is what I'm saying even to Christians and to the people around me. Don't talk to me about your values. Show your values in the way you behave. And the Muslims are the first to speak. We speak too much. Muslims are too much speaking about Islam and not enough experiencing Islam. So I would say to people, you know, some didn't understand when I was saying this 30 years ago. Talk about God without mentioning God. So what are you talking about? If I talk about God, no, it means be the one in your behavior, with your wisdom, with the way you speak, with the way you serve the people. The people, you should be a question for the people because you are a gift. You understand? A gift. When you get a gift, you say, where does it come from? It's a question. And the question is, why do you behave like this? What is the reason of your behavior? And this is for you to look for. It's not for me to give you the answer. But for example, there are people that are doing things that, you know, in the way they are dealing with the... I always, you know, I have in my family, in the people that I see, very simple, ordinary Muslims, but the way they serve without talking too much, they don't always, it's not becoming, I'm a Muslim. This also was the answer after September the 11th when the Muslims in the United States were putting a step, proud to be a Muslim, say it means that you have a complex if you put it on your heart. It should be a light from your heart, not a stamp on your heart. So just be a witness. Stop talking and now show. And I would say that this is the new visibility of Muslims should be out of behavior, not out of speeches. We are the first to speak, not the first to show. And this is the substance, by the way. I would say that this is the substance.
You mentioned that the supreme value in Islam should be to spread peace within ourselves and get peace with nature, environment and fellow humans. But if you see what is happening now, it's not a reflection of that. I feel so sad what is happening in the world, and particularly among Muslims. And I would like, I don't know, I may be wrong, but didn't Cat Stevens say if he had mixed with Muslims prior to conversion, he would never have converted to Islam? Is that true?
No, he was repeating something which was said much before him by people, yes, and we heard this since the end of 19th century. Mm-hmm. See, if I had to deal with Muslims, I would never have chosen Islam. But you also have other experiences. Many people became Muslim because they were dealing with Muslims. Mm-hmm. We have to stop, I would say, we have to stop this self-critical obsession of thinking that we are not good. We are not the best, but there is some good in us. We have to remain positive. There are people who are doing, be positive means look at the facts. We have lots of people who are good Muslims serving and doing their best. And we have some people who are misunderstanding Islam, betraying the values. Yes, that's right. But when we are talking about peace, it's a commitment. And in Islam, to get peace means you have to struggle. This is paradoxical. But you are not at peace with yourself by being passive. You have to struggle with your own self. You have to liberate yourself from your own ego to get peace. So it's the greatest struggle. And when you are dealing with this world, you cannot just, I don't like this kind of, this is the new age that you have, and the 60s say, what, peace and love. That's fine. Peace and love is good. But in fact, there is no peace without struggle. Struggle in the name of peace, and never forget love. But you have to struggle. And to struggle means what? You have to look at the world the way it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ending the Quran by telling us, be careful with human beings. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. 5 times nice to tell us, be careful with the nas. In fact, you know what it means? Be careful with your own self. By the way, do you trust yourself 100%? You don't. So you have to be cautious with everybody. And human beings are like this. They can betray you, they can oppress, so you have to be courageous. We have to be quite clear on this. Our commitment to peace means we are ready to every struggle in the name of dignity of human beings. Because you are people who are undignified. So when you see what is happening in the Muslim majority countries, we can be sad. We also have to be clear on the reasons why people are driven to this. I myself, I went through very difficult experiences with people that I loved, and I saw them doing things. I say, how can you do something like this? And then they give you reasons. So you understand without justifying, but you understand. So we should stop being negative about ourselves. Look at the positive side, all the people are doing. Look at what is happening in Malaysia. If you see what is happening in Malaysia, you can be quite sad about the state of Muslims. But over the last 50 years, so many good things are happening. So many good things are developing. So we have to look at this. And this is a mindset. If you are with God in a spiritual way, you look at the positive, The Prophet ﷺ once was starting a war, and he knew that 1/3 of the people with him were quite hypocrites, and he went because he relied on the sincere and not being obsessed with the hypocrites. We are obsessed with the hypocrites, and we don't rely on and we are not hoping and putting our hope in the sincere people. I think we have to change our mind. We have to change. We have to be much more serene and calm and at peace with this. It starts with this. If you are looking at peace, just look with a kind of positive side on these dimensions. And then you have to do your job. You have to try to, but be careful not to judge your brothers and sisters. I keep on repeating this because I really think it's a spiritual commitment. Be very harsh with acts and behaviors, and be soft with human beings. Never come with a definitive judgment on people. You don't know what could happen. You don't know why and what they can change. Even with the people who are denying God. You don't like the fact of denying God, and you respect the people for who they are because you don't know what they can be, and tomorrow they can be better than you even. So I think that this is something which is a positive side, to look at the world. Many people are telling me, you keep on talking, we have been talking for 30 years now and nothing is changing. And that's not right. Even here, you come here and maybe somebody is going to listen to what you have to say, 1 out of 200. And this is going to change his or her life. And it might be that you came all the way just for him or her. Numbers don't matter when it comes to heart. It matters when it comes to capitalism.
First of all, I would like to thank you for your lecture. The second thing, I have an eminent since we live in a connected world, I have an eminent from someone that you know in France. I'm a French citizen, and this person lives in Nantes, and his name is Azouz Breton, and I would like to say thank you for coming to Nantes in June. The last thing is my own question.
That's a personal message. Okay, got it.
He told me it's a collective work. He knew you were coming here. Just wanted to say thank you. The third thing is my own question. You said that Islam is a very complex and complicated, let's say, religion. I have found that in the ahadith, there's one hadith that can simplify everything. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. And in your opinion, according to you, would there be anything close to this thing in the Quran, separating the ahadith and the Quran? Is there any verse that would be very simple for someone who would be willing to understand the Quran, some verse that would be a stepping stone to understanding the Quran? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the personal message. As to your question, I think that even the hadith that you mentioned, you know, it's simple when you are already equipped to understand. قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ. Some people would stop here and say, what does it mean? ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Follow the right path. That's not easy. What is the right path? How am I going to follow this? So there's commitment between believing and behaving that could be very simple if you are equipped, you have something here. And this is why in the Quran, if you start with Surah Al-Baqarah, you understand, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. This book, there is no doubt about it. It's a guidance for whom? For the people who are full of God consciousness. In fact, for this book to be a guide, you have to have already this God consciousness. If not, it's not going to be a book. هدى للمتقين لا ريب فيه, because you are already believing that it's coming from God. So we should also be very cautious with things that appear to be simple and are not as simple as that. This is one. The second is, I didn't say that Islam is complex. I say Islam is a set of very simple principles. In fact, Islam is a simple religion. But Islam is telling us that this simple religion with simple principles are to be dealt with a complicated life. And anyone who is going in the name of the simplicity of Islam to tell you that your life is simple doesn't get it. No, my life is complicated. And it's very complex to deal with simplicity. It's not easy at all. It's not easy for some, the struggle to pray, the struggle to be strict with some rules. And especially when we are in an environment where there is a cultural pressure on you, coming from wherever. It's not easy, because you feel that you have tensions. Something which is, you know, when you deal with your own kids, you come to them and you want to give them principles. And they come to you and they say, yeah, but what are they thinking of me? Who is this they? My friends. They are looking at me. So I'm torn apart between my principles because I want them, and them because I want them as well. I love them. They are having an opinion on me, and I don't know how to deal. The principles are simple. This tension is complex. And some, they don't care. Even when you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are you kids. They don't deal the same with this. Some are protected because they don't care, and others because sometimes your qualities could be your weaknesses. Because you are open-minded, you have a heart, you like communicating, so this is good, and the judgment of the others could make it difficult for you. So a quality becomes your weakness. As to the principles. So the principle is simple, the life is complicated. And if you want to come to one verse in the Quran dealing with this, I would say there is not one verse, but there is Al-Fatiha. It's very clear and straight to the point. 7 verses telling you exactly what you have to know to summarize Islam as to not only the way that you believe in God, because you can have Surah Al-Ikhlas, it's very short, but this is the relationship to one God. But Surah Al-Fatiha, everything is there. Everything is there about your commitment to Him, asking Him for help, and to follow the straight path. This is it. And asking Him or hoping from Him to protect you from going astray. So it's there. Everything is there. And I would say a deep understanding of the Fatiha is a deep understanding of Islam. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Professor, for a great lecture. A couple of weeks ago, you slammed Western media for inciting Islamophobia. Are there any independent and impartial views that we can look through?
What did I do?
Slam Western media for inciting Islamophobia.
I don't know why you have read this.
Al Jazeera.
I said all the Western media. Okay. I think that I have to clarify this. I don't like this kind of generalization, and I don't think that what I did was this in Al Jazeera. What I said is that yes, some media and mainstream media are nurturing a sense of targeting and stigmatizing the Muslims in the West. Not all of them, by the way, but the mainstream media, and in some countries more than others. And I would say that I am questioning and at least bringing some journalists to task and to their responsibility when it comes to what are you doing by nurturing always this discourse and rhetoric about Islam and Muslims being always alien to the society. So, but not all the journalists are doing this, and I have met journalists even in France, and I'm mentioning this. Now, in a recent, if you go on my website, it's in English, in Arabic, and in French. I'm trying in my Facebook official to have everything in the 3 languages. If you go there, I just wrote something about the mainstream journalists in France by telling them, in fact, what you are doing today is nurturing and normalizing a discourse that yesterday was only promoted by the Front National and the far-right parties. You are normalizing this discourse. And I think that this is your responsibility now also, this is what I'm saying to the journalists, to look at other actors, other realities on the ground, and to understand that French Muslims are French, and they are part of this society. European Muslims are Europeans. So this is a call for the journalists, but I'm not generalizing, but I'm really afraid of this tendency that we have now, and in fact even in the States is exactly the same. It's not only in Europe. 2 things are important. I don't know any media that is completely free from ideological take. Of course, there is an ideology. It could be through the owners, or it could be from the states, or it could be from different sources, and there are majority trends everywhere in the West, and even here in Malaysia. If you think that there is one completely independent media in Malaysia, please introduce me to them. Because it doesn't happen, if you get me right. So we are all working for somebody. Now you have some journalists that are courageous, that are independent, they are ready to struggle. And I think that we have also to be positive and to show that some are doing the job. Not all the journalists are just, they don't have ethics in their jobs, or they are not professional. I met so many everywhere, people with great commitment, and they want the stories to be right. And I think that we have to acknowledge this and stop being negative on everybody. But we have to call the journalists to do more in this and to stop only talking about what is bad and what are the problems. Lots of Western Muslims are doing good today and promoting things, but they are invisible, and we are only obsessed with the people who are destroying and not talking about the people who are building. So it's also a challenge. So I think that there is another responsibility. And it's also something that I'm always repeating to Western Muslims, as well as I'm repeating here. I'm repeating it here, is the Muslim citizens in Malaysia or in the Muslim majority countries or in the West, they also have a great deal of responsibility about which type of discourse we have in the media. Because we don't have enough young and not so young sisters and brothers, Muslim women, Muslim men, going and talking and knowing how to talk and being involved in the media. We keep on blaming the journalists and we don't know who has to go there. We are not organized, we don't have a voice, and we complain all the time. It's also our responsibility to have the people to go and to talk. We are the first to be critical. We sit down in our living room and look at this one, he doesn't know how to speak. And what about you? What about you? Why are you disappearing? Why the Muslim, and even sometimes Muslim women are asking me to speak about women in Islam. I'm sorry, I'm still a man. It's not going to happen. Where are the women going and speaking about this? Go and speak. You have a voice, you have a mind, you have your freedom, you have your autonomy. Do the job. And now if they don't want to listen to you now, with your commitment, with you being on the ground, it's going to change, because you cannot deny reality all the time. At one point you have to face it. And this is what I'm saying to the European the European governments. One day you will have to face this reality. They are Europeans as much as you. They speak your language. They are building your country, and they are not only playing football and playing music. They are human beings. They have a culture, they have a voice, they have a religion, they have principles. Listen to them. And I say to the Muslims, now it's your turn. Stand up. Do your job. So we have to, my position on this is, I never generalize in such a way, and if I did it on this program, I was wrong.
Assalamu alaikum. Professor Ramadan. I'm French. I'm living in Malaysia for a few years, and I really follow, especially when you talk about the peace, looking for peace. And according to my narrow point of view, for me peace is huge. To find peace nowadays, especially in a big city, is a very, very huge challenge. And I'm likely to think it's quite vain to seeking peace here. And I want to know your point of view about that. If we can still have hope in a modern paradigm with only marketing matter, engineering, social matter, money matter, if we can still hoping to have some peace here. And sorry for my English.
Oh, that's very good. Alhamdulillah, thank you. Look, first we agree on something, that it's huge and it's difficult. Now let me tell you something, we have to be realistic. If you want peace, and only peace, and full peace, that's not for here. Allah yad'u ila dar as-salam, this is for the hereafter. The only thing that you are going to get in this life is instant of peace. It's something that you can get as a gift. And to get this, you need to understand that you have to be committed. You know, in the mystical tradition, if you look at all what they are saying, very long journey, very dedicated, with prayers, with very, you follow the 5 pillars, and you pray during the night, and you try to have elevation, maratib, and then ahwal, and then you go to get what at the end? Instant, when you are close to God and you experience the fact that you love Him and that you are loved by Him. But instant, and then you come back. You come back to the reality. And it's because you experience it that you come back and you understand what is missing. And then you start again. It's an ongoing process. So in your situation today, in our situation today, for every one of us, what you can get is sometimes something which is given to you as a gift. You are exposing yourself, you are opening yourself to get it. You are ready for it. You're not going to get it every time. But it could be an instant when you read the Quran, an instant when you are in front of, for a landscape, when you are with people you love, with your kids, with your wife, with your parents. Everything could be a gift. Be careful. Don't try to get too more peace. You will get nothing. Just try to be humble even with this. And in our life today, it's sometimes to take time for yourself. It's to take time for your prayers. It's to meditate. It's to try to be on your own. You know, there are some people, for example, in my life, I'm very active. I'm traveling a lot. But without people noticing it, you take time. You are in a plane, you think. You meditate, you read, and then you stop reading and you think, and you just think, you pray. These are things that are very important. How much time you give to yourself, and this has not to be noticed by the people, it has to be you and yourself. Don't try to get too much, but try to protect yourself. Do not get time at all for yourself. And you know, I keep on repeating in some of the lectures something which is very deep if you listen to it. We are used to say it in English like this, very quickly. But you have to take it as it is, with the substance. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. You know why? Because yourself, it's not your ownership. It's a gift. You are for yourself a gift. And Allah gave to yourself a body, a mind, a heart. And you will come back to Him. So take care of yourself, everything. And this is why you have to be just. You know, in Adam and Hawa, Adam and Eve, they said at the beginning, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. We have been unjust with our own self. And there is one saying from the Prophet, peace be upon him, saying, وَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقًّا. Give everything in yourself its own right. Your mind, your heart, your body, yourself. You need to be just. It's a struggle, and this is the way you are going to get peace. So this is a struggle, and it starts with taking care of yourself, and the spiritual dimension, the physical dimension, the social dimension, your own dignity. Don't let, you want peace with your own self, never let anybody mistreat your dignity. Never. So these are things that they are part of your daily life. So I don't like this understanding of some people confusing this with isolating yourself from the world, and this is where, you know, I will get peace. No. You have to get peace in the middle of your social life, within the people. And it means, how do you protect yourself from being colonized by the environment? In fact, life in Islam is an ongoing jihad, if you understand the meaning. I gave a lecture yesterday about this. And the meaning of jihad is this resistance and reform that is needed. But in the end, it's a liberation. A liberation. You have to liberate yourself from this ego and the troubles that are coming with it. It's an ongoing process. And the only thing that you can expect is instant of peace. Instant of light. Instant. And sometimes it goes with the people you love more and more. Just take this. And you know what you have to do with this? Something which is essential. Essential. Never, never forget to thank Him. Ashkurillah. Thank Him to everything that you get. And sometimes and always, in fact, you have even to thank Him for the hurdles and the obstacles on your way. Because Remember this, Allah is always testing the people He loves. That's great. If you just think about this, and sometimes say, oh, this time I am very much tested. Sometimes it's a real test. It could be a deep love. Depends how you're going to deal with it.
Hello. I was just wondering.
Where are you?
I'm just wondering if you could explain the difference between the tradition and the authentic hadith, and how to place the authentic hadith in the whole gamma of Islamic knowledge.
Between tradition, you mean Sunnah?
The traditions in general, when you make a distinction between the traditions as the hadiths that are, I don't know, that's actually the question, is it the Sunnah?
Okay, look, this is quite a specific question. Just to be quick and to summarize. What we know, and coming from the classical Islamic studies, is the two main sources of Islam are Al-Quran, the Quran, and a Sunnah. We call Sunnah. What is understood by the scholar by Sunnah has changed in history. Now what we call Sunnah are the collection of ahadith that are reporting what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, did, or approved. Okay? Said, did, or approved. At the beginning, the Sunnah, when the Prophet himself was talking about the Sunnah, this was understood in a wider way. For example, Malik, the first of the four traditions that we have today, wrote a book called Al-Muwatta. And in this book, he is integrating in the ahadith and with the ahadith the way of life of the people, his own opinion as part of the Sunnah. Why? Because he was relying on the authentic ahadith. Authentic ahadith means these are the ahadith that we know through the chain of transmission and through the content that they are considered as authentic and acknowledged as being so. And they are the minority among all the ahadith, because the great majority are considered as weak. It could be from da'if to or Hassan, and sometimes Hassan is not considered enough just to be used as supporting a rule. But we have classification. In ulum al-hadith you have up to 43 to 48, even more depending on the scholar, classification of authenticity. At the highest level it's considered as, so it's a science in itself. So some are considered as not. 2 books are considered in this, you have 6 books with the Sunni, 4 books with the Shia that are considered as reference books as to the authentic prophetic tradition. So it's a science with its own classification, and now we have discussion about even some of the ahadith that were considered as authentic, and still now it could be a problem as to the substance, the content, al-matn itself. So it's not as simple as that. So you have all this discussion, and then you have the discussion on Sunnah, where Sunnah was not only the legal dimension of the prophetic traditions, it was the way of life, it was the understanding by the people and integrated into it. And it's after Shafi'i, with Usul al-Fiqh and this work that he did on the categorization, of the way to extract from the Quran and the sources, that we ended having the hadith understood in a very specific way. So you need also to deal with history to understand the history of the scientific concept in the Islamic tradition. So it's very complex on this. Now what we know is in Islam you have the Quran that is not undisputed, and you have ahadith, and among these ahadith, few ahadith that are at the highest level of authenticity that rely on them in order to get the essence of our religion. That's it. And then you have discussion about so many different levels. I hope I clarified the...
How much ahadith are there at the highest level?
No, we don't agree on how many are completely authentic, but you can go up to a few thousand ahadith that are. It's not something. So the al-mutawatir is few hundred. So it's the highest level, and then authentic and relied upon is few thousand, and then you have lots of other ahadith and really a great majority of the ahadith that are disputed or not acknowledged as authentic. And among the scholars, there are some that are saying this is authentic and this is not. So you have, for example, discussion. For example, in the question of, take the example of the niqab, covering the face. There are lots of ahadith that are dealing with this, and some of them are not authentic. Even Al-Albani, who was al-muhaddith, was very, I rely on him when I want really, on him and others, but when I want really to know what are the most authentic ahadith. He's a Salafi, he's a literalist. I don't agree with his legal opinions, but I find him being very serious when it comes to what are the right hadiths. He's very, very tough with this. And it's very helpful to have somebody who is not playing with, a hadith authentic, there are conditions. And he was talking about this, for example, and he went through the hadith saying, at the beginning of his study, he was saying that the niqab is an obligation in Islam, that you have to cover. At the end of all his study, he said, I ended up with the opinion that the hijab is the obligation, the prescription, and not the niqab. But I prefer for my wife to wear the niqab. أفضل لزوجتي. So this is something which is interesting, very tough with the texts, and then he ended up with an opinion that I agree with, but he is just explaining how he deals with himself with his own opinion by saying this is the way I'm looking at the issue.
We will allow for one more last question. Hello. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Professor.
I don't, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. And I just want to say that I was passing by. I'm on my summer vacation actually. And I was very surprised when I saw a gathering here, and then I realized Professor Tariq Ramadan is here, and I'm very much happy being here. Actually, I want to say that I embraced Islam maybe up to 2 years ago. And it's such a lovely feeling, but I want to say something. Being a Muslim 2 years, how to explain? There are so many issues that I would like to say, but as a woman, this is a very serious one. Dealing with people from Muslim community, actually, I'm very sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but anyway, what I want to say that there's a big problem within the community, and the problem is about the education. And Islamic education. People lack knowledge, and also this is the reminder for myself, because I'm from Poland, I'm Polish Muslim, I'm coming, what is so-called from the West, although I don't like this fake distinction between West and East, because I think that we are all connected. And the problem that I found is how Muslim women and Muslim men think about themselves, because I had so many conversations with people, and when I talk to them, and for example, some men, they told me, well, I think that men is superior than women, and then they are quoting Quran, and they are just quoting some hadith, and for me it's very much surprising, because I was raised completely differently, and this is not Islam, this is not in Islam, and I think it's a cultural heritage or whatever. But what I want to say, this is it. I just want to say that
we need to learn as much as we can, and please, my sisters, learn, and please, I'm telling to myself that we need to always continuously study, and please, men, let women breathe, because this is,
it's not really a question, but just to react on what you are saying, because at the end, what I understand from your experience being a Muslim is to look at embracing Islam and dealing with Muslims. These are two different things. And it's really, your point, it's important, and it's even important here, because you are calling Muslim women to go for more education and Muslim men to let women breathe. And I would agree with what is behind what you are saying. At the end, and this is also connected to the positive, to be positive about the way we look at the community, but not being positive and being passive or acknowledging the state of affairs. That every one of us, at the end, a woman as much as men, should be committed to learn more about Islam, to learn more about the principles, to be a witness, and this is something which is important, and then also in this process of getting the knowledge, to do something which is very necessary everywhere, to be able to distinguish between what is coming from the cultural heritage and legacy and what is coming from the Islamic principle. Because many things that are now presented as Islamic, even in Malaysia, are much more from the Malay culture or the Asian culture than from Islam. And this is a struggle. This is very important. We have to liberate ourselves from the cultural colonization. There are many good things in the Malay culture and many things that are wrong. Many things that you have to challenge. And men and women, by the way. And it has to do with something which is a permanent struggle. You have to deal with this. This is a very important struggle, a very important thing. And many, and I would say for you, even though you don't like the fact that we are talking about Western Muslims or European Muslims, still there is, I agree with you that it's sometimes misleading. But I would say to the Muslims or to the convert to Islam or the people who are entering into Islam, don't deny your cultural origin. Take from it what is good. Because some are trying to make you an Arab or make you a Malay, and you have to change your culture in order to be a good Muslim. And I keep on repeating this. This is something which is an ongoing struggle. It's the only way for you to liberate yourself from the cultural colonization is a better religious education when it comes to Islam, and to understand some of the principles that are beyond this, and to be equipped to go for this struggle. This is a personal commitment. It has to come from every one of you. And you have the right to ask. You have, you know, a convert to Islam, Jeffrey, I forgot his family name. He wrote, maybe you will remember him, he wrote a book called Even the Angels Ask. Jeffrey Lang, right. So he converted to Islam, and he was fed up with this mentality of Muslims. When you are a good Muslim, you don't question. And you come to the Quran, Sami'na wa ata'na. No, Sami'na wa ata'na is for clear-cut verses, wa aqimu s-salat. But you have the right to ask, why do I pray? Once I'll pray, why? The why is essential for you to feel at peace intellectually. And you have the right to question. And then you need to question in order to get the right answer. Don't have taken for granted answer that you just repeat and you don't know what you are talking about. At the end it will come back to you. At the end you will not feel at peace when you have superficial answer to deep question. You have to question and you have to get the right answer. And this is your personal intellectual jihad for men and women. Question and look for answer. That's the point. And stop, please. because we are here in the museum. It's about arts. Stop being consumers of, lectures. You come every week to listen, to think that this is knowledge. What we did this morning is not even an introduction to an introduction. You are behind the door. You still have to enter into the world of knowledge by reading. If we have in the Quran, read how many books are you reading? How much time do you allocate to your education, to your liberation, to your autonomy? How much time do you take to read and to structure your mind? Muslims are now transforming even the speakers. We are now, you know what they are saying in the United States or in Europe? Tariq Ramadan is a Muslim pop star. Look at this. You know why? Because they have a problem and they are mentioning a problem. You are looking at scholars in the way which is not full of intellectual commitment, but sometimes as, here's the one I listen to. That's wrong. You listen and you are critical. You listen and you read and you check. There are many things that you have to stop this. This is a capitalist culture. Don't do with the ulama and don't do with the speakers what they do with Michael Jackson and think it's halal idealization. Idealization by definition is haram. You have even the scholars, even Malik, even Hanbal are saying, everything that I say is right, you take it. But if I'm wrong, you reject it. Meaning what? Check it. Check it out. Do your job. So this is something which is essential. Stop idealizing and stop going to lecture thinking that this is where you are getting knowledge. Lectures are just introduction to knowledge. It's just an incitement to go to knowledge. It's to entice you to go for that. That's it. So I would insist on this, and especially when it comes to, for example, arts, it's all about you look at the things around you. It's an open space to get a better understanding of a heritage, a legacy, the richness of this tradition. So you have to reconcile yourself with this. You are coming from somewhere. You are not here to please the people. You are going to please Him, and to please Him is where do you come from? Where are you heading? Are you equipped? In khayr al-zayd al-taqwa. Al-taqwa it's God consciousness. It's your best provision for the journey of life. But it's demanding. So please do this and be involved. And I would just ask you as well, because as I'm coming here, I'm trying to do this work of pushing the young scholars, the students, to be involved in the fields where they feel good and they feel that they have some skills. We are working on 10 to 11 fields in the center that I'm heading, on education, media, arts, economics, politics, bioethics, sciences, gender, men and women. And by the way, it's not only about women, it's also about men, because we have problems on that. So many fields. If you are working on this, if you are interested in working on ethics and thinking about this, even if you are not a scholar, but you are a student or you are interested, we want to connect with ordinary Muslims to push you to do the job, to think about it, to produce papers, to produce and to read about what we are trying to do. So I'm not coming only here to please you for 1 hour. It's also to push you to think about your own commitment beyond this visit with our connections. It could be through the website, the KAI Center, the Center for Islamic Legislation and Ethics, through what you are doing even here with the institutions that you have in this country. This is also a call for you and through all the media. I'm using all the social media, but I want the social media to be also introduction to. It could be Facebook or Twitter, but these are not the final goal. To be connected through this is just for you to be connected to your own commitment to knowledge, inshallah. So this could be also a call for your own responsibility as women and as men. Thank you.
Thank you.